श्रीराघवम् दशरथात्मजमप्रमेयम् सीतापतिम् रघुकुलान्मयरत्नदीपम् आजानुबाहुम् अरविन्ददलायताक्षम् रामम् निशाचर विनाशकरम् नमामि नमामि नमामि
Ramakatha Rasavahini. Chapter 5, Part 1, The Guru and the Pupils. The brothers lived in the preceptor's house and served him with devotion. They renounced the comforts of the palace and gladly underwent the hardships. They carried out the wishes of the master in humility and with loyalty. They finished their studies in a very short period and mastered the subjects they were taught. One day, Emperor Dasharatha proceeded with his minister to the home of their teacher. He was beside himself with joy when he saw them reciting Vedic hymns and heard the sacred formula out of their tongues clear and fast like a cascade of bright pearls. He was happy that his sons had learned so much. Rama rose and fell at the feet of his father. Seeing this, the three brothers too came forward and prostrated before him. The teacher invited the emperor and the minister to seat themselves on raised seats covered with deerskin. Dasharatha began conversing with the teacher in order to find out how far the children had advanced in studies. Rama signed to his brothers that they should not overhear their talk. He left the room with the permission of the Guru, carrying his books with him and calling on the others to follow him. The brothers took the cue from Rama in all matters, and so they silently obeyed his gesture. Vasishtha and Dasharatha noted this incident. They appreciated the upright conduct of Rama, his understanding of the trend of the teacher's conversation and the immediate reaction of humility, and the way in which he was an example and ideal for the three brothers. They were glad that they had learned so much discipline. Vasishtha could not contain himself. He said, "Maharaja, your sons have mastered all the arts. Rama has mastered all the Shastras. He is no ordinary mortal. As soon as I began teaching him to recite the Vedas, he used to repeat them as if he knew them already. Only he who has inspired the hymns can repeat them so, not any other. The Vedas are not books which he could have pursued while at leisure. They have come down from Guru and disciple through recitation and listening only. They are not available anywhere except from the preceptor. That is the reason why it is referred to as Shruti, that which is heard. It is the divine breath of God that has shaped itself into these mantras. I have not seen so far anyone who has mastered them as Rama has done. Why should I say seen? I have not even heard of anyone who has accomplished this remarkable feat. I can tell you of many more superhuman achievements of your son Maharaja. When I think of my good fortune in securing these boys as my pupils, I feel it is a reward for the asceticism I practiced so long. They need learn nothing further. They have now to be trained in bowmanship and archery and similar skills appropriate for royal princes. They have completed their studies under me and become efficient in all that I can teach. The day too is very auspicious. Take them back with you to the palace. At this, Dasharatha, who was afflicted for months with the pain of separation, shed tears of joy. He could not contain his delight. He turned towards the minister by his side and directed him to convey the good news to the queens and asked them to come over to the hermitage with the offerings that the pupils have to present to the preceptor while leaving his custody. Sumantra proceeded very fast to the palace and communicated the news. He got ready the gifts and returned quicker than anticipated. Meanwhile, the boys had their belongings packed at the suggestion of Vasishtha, and the articles were loaded into the chariot. As directed by their father, the children worshipped the Guru according to the prescribed ceremonial, gave him the gifts and fell at his feet, asking his permission to leave for home. Vasishtha drew the boys to his side, pressed their hands and patted them on their heads. He blessed them and most unwillingly allowed them to leave. The pang of separation brought tears in his eyes. He walked up to the chariot with his pupils. The boys ascended the vehicle and it moved away. They turned back towards the Guru and looked in his direction with folded palms for a long distance. The preceptor too stood at that place, his cheeks wet with tears. Dasharatha noted this bond between the teacher and the pupils. He was greatly pleased. They reached home. The Guru entered the hermitage with a heavy heart. Wherever his eyes were turned, he noticed darkness and no light. He feared that the attachment he had developed might confirm itself as a shackle. He decided to sit in dhyana in order to suppress the rising tides of memory. Soon, he overcame the outer illusion and merged himself in inner ananda. He realized that the boys were embodiments of dharma, artha, kama, moksha, the four goals of human life, namely righteousness, welfare, endeavor, and liberation, and that they had taken human form in order to re-establish on earth these grand ideals of gracious living. This gave him unruffled peace. Dasharatha resolved to supplement the education the boys had received by training them in the use of arms. So, he called in expert archers and others and made arrangements to teach them the science of attack and defense. But who can claim to be the teachers of these boys, who were already past masters in every field of study? They were only acting the roles of humans and pretending to learn. To him who holds the strings of this puppet show, who can teach to pull the string? Men who could not recognize this reality underwent the camouflage of Maya, sought to train them and teach them the objective skills useful for external living. They have come to save the world from disaster, so they have to be in the world and of the world, respecting the conventions of the world so far as they subserve their purpose. Men could not understand their acts, for they are beyond human intellect and imagination. They will be helpless if asked to explain them. But people must learn the ideals they put into practice. So, Rama was presenting himself as a cinder covered with ash, or a lake with a thick float of moss, or the moon hidden by a curtain of cloud. The brothers were following the footsteps of Rama. Rama and Lakshmana were revealing knowledge of stratagems and skills which even expert instructors did not know about. They were wonder-struck and were even a little fear-stricken. But the four princes never shot an arrow at an animal or bird. They never broke the vow taken solemnly by them that they will use arms only on occasions of great urgency, not for the pleasure of killing or wounding. The trainers took them often to the forest for hikes and game shooting, but when they spotted animals or birds and invited them to shoot, they remonstrated and said, "These arrows are not to be used against innocent targets. They are to be used for the protection of the good, the welfare of the world, and the service of the people. That is the purpose for which they are with us. We shall not insult them using them for these silly pastimes." The teachers had to accept their arguments. Every word, every deed of Rama demonstrated his compassion. Sometimes when Lakshmana aimed his arrow at a bird or animal, Rama came in between and protested, "Lakshmana, what harm has it done to you or the world? Why do you long to shoot it? It is quite against the code of prescribed morals for the king to punish innocent beings. Don't you know?" The emperor often sat among his ministers with the princess near him and discussed with those around him the problems of political administration, judicial trials, and the application of moral principles in the governance of the state. He related stories of their grandparents and others of the royal line, how they earned the love and loyalty of their subjects, how they fought wars with demons and for gods, and how they won the grace and support of God in their endeavors. The father and the sons were both exhilarated when these tales were told. Many a day, the ministers took turns in this pleasant task. As they grew with the passage of years, the ministers became confident that they could be entrusted with some fields of governmental activity. The people dreamt that when they came of age and took hold of the reins of government, the earth will be transmuted into heaven. When people saw the princes, they felt a bond of affectionate attachment springing between them. The conversation that ensued among them was marked by sweet concord. The city of Ayodhya had no one who did not love those simple, humble, virtuous, selfless princes, or who did not evince a desire to watch them. They were as dear to the children of Ayodhya as their own bodies, as precious to the city as their own heart. When they were in their 11th or 12th year, one day Dasharatha called to his presence the minister Sumantra, who was the repository of virtue, and commissioned him to arrange for teaching the princes the spiritual science of liberation, the Paravidya. He said that however proficient a person may be in secular sciences, Aparavidya, Paravidya alone can give him the strength to carry out his dharma, rightful duties. The highest moral culture must be imparted to them at this tender age itself. Success or failure in later life was built upon the impressions and experiences gained in the early stages of life. The early years are the foundations for the mansion of later years. Therefore, he said, take the princes around the kingdom and let them learn not only the condition of the people but also the holiness of sacred places. Describe to them the sanctity of holy places, the history of the temples and of the saints and sages who have consecrated them, and let them drink deep the springs of divinity that are hallowing those spots. I feel it will be good if they do so. As they grow, they will be prone to sensual desires and urges. Before they fall a prey to such tendencies, it is best to implant in them reverence and awe and devotion to the divine. That is immanent in the universe. That is the only means to save their humanness from demeaning itself into animality. And for rulers of kingdoms, it is essential. Consult the Guru and the preceptors and arrange the tour without delay. Elated at the prospect of the princess getting this great opportunity, Sumantra had all preparations made to his satisfaction. He got ready himself to accompany them. The queens came to know of the pilgrimage that the princes were undertaking. They were delighted that the princes were going on such a holy venture, and they made many things ready to render it as happy and useful as possible. They arranged a few nurses for them and some comrades of their own age to accompany them. The princes too were beside themselves with joy at the prospect of visiting the sacred places of the land. They enthused their companions and sought from the king equipment and clothes for them also. The next day, when the auspicious hour specially selected for the journey arrived, the princes bowed before their parents, touching their feet with their foreheads. They fell at the feet of the preceptor. The mothers placed holy dots on their foreheads and cheeks to ward off the evil eye and to guard them against evil. They discarded royal robes and put on the habiliment of pilgrims, that is to say, silk dhotis around the waist and silk shawls wrapped round the shoulders, and taking leave of them, they ascended the chariot. The palace resounded with shouts of victory, rising from thousands of citizens who had gathered to see them off. The chariot moved on with guards before and behind. Days, weeks, and even months rolled by. They went to every temple and sacred spot. They imbibed the holiness of each place. They worshipped at each shrine with faith and devotion. They learnt after deep enquiry the history of each place and the antecedents of the shrines. They ignored every other thought or activity during all that long period. Sumantra was describing to them the sanctity of each place so graphically and intimately that their hearts were thrilled. The princes plied him with questions demanding further and deeper elaboration of his narrations. Sumantra was overjoyed at this insatiable yearning of the boys, and he gave even more information and inspiration. Thus, they journeyed from Kanyakumari to Kashmir and from the eastern sea to the western, spending more than 3 months. They had their eyes open to the sufferings of the people and the discomforts of the pilgrims in every region of the empire. And whenever they observed these, they pleaded with Sumantra, the minister, to set things right and to provide the needed amenities. They were responsible for the repair and improvement of many temples, the provision of drinking water wells, the planting of avenue trees, the opening of centers for the distribution of water to the thirsty wayfarers, the building of caravansaries, and the establishment of health centers. Whenever Rama expressed a desire that such amenities be provided, Sumantra never hesitated to agree. He saw to it that they were immediately provided to his satisfaction. The princess derived great comfort that the empire had such a loyal and efficient minister as Sumantra. They said to each other that when they had such ministers, welfare and progress was assured. Accounts of the pilgrimage of the princess were conveyed to Ayodhya by special courtiers who ran in relays, forward and backward with news they collected. Whenever delays occurred, the queens were weighed down by anxiety. They prayed to the preceptor Vasishtha to give them correct information regarding them. Vasishtha had the yogic attainment to discover what was happening to them, so he used to tell them the reassuring news that they were happy, healthy, and hearty, and that they would soon be returning to the capital. The mothers derived courage and confidence therefrom. The preceptor blessed them and returned to his hermitage. Meanwhile, the news gatherers brought good tidings. They said that the princes were nearing Ayodhya. They must be reaching the city within 2 days. Arrangements were therefore made at the main gateway of the city to welcome into the imperial capital the 4 princes who had successfully gone through their long and arduous pilgrimage and earned meritorious renown by their devotion and compassion during their triumphal tour. Rose water was sprinkled on the roads to make them dust-free. Arches and festoons were put up. On both sides of the road, women stood with plates on which they had placed lamps with bright flames which they desired to wave before them as they passed along. The princess arrived at the gate as announced. Lamps were waved before them. They moved along the main highway, which was strewn with petals of fragrant flowers. Parties of musicians and minstrels singing welcome songs proceeded slowly in advance. Brahmins recited hymns invoking the blessings of God upon the distinguished scions of the imperial family. End of Part 1, Chapter 5, Sai Ram.
Shri Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Ram Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram. Shri Ram ji की महिमा अपार, राम जी की महिमा अपार. सुन लो तो बेड़ा पार, सुन लो तो बेड़ा पार. श्री राम जी की महिमा अपार, राम जी की महिमा विंदा श्यामल छवि अति सुंदर राम करुणा स्वरूप श्री राम निर्मल स्वभाव श्री राम करुणा स्वरूप निर्मल स्वभाव भक्तों के प्राण गुणशीलवान नीरज नयना मुखार विंदा श्यामल छवि अति सुंदर राम रविकुल मंडन दशरथ नंदन मुनि मनरंजन नयन विराम राम श्री राम श्री राम श्री राम श्री राम श्री राम जी की महिमा अपार राम जी की महिमा अपार जय जय श्री राम जय जय श्री राम जय जय श्री राम जिनकी कृपा ने आखर बितारे एक ही बाण ने दुष्ट संहारे जिनकी कृपा ने पाथर बितारे एक ही बाण ने दुष्ट संहारे चरणों की धूल ने पापी उठारे जन्मदिन उन्हीं का मना लो आज जन्मदिन उन्हीं का मना लो आज मुबारक हो सबको जन्मदिन की रात रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम राम सीता राम सीता राम सीता